there's so much healing that the world needs at one time. And the most predictable that I've seen, the most predictable methodology for getting that to occur is the plant medicine. It really is the best healing thing that I've seen.
This is episode 65 of the Ownstream Podcast, featuring Gerry Powell.
Welcome to the Ownstream Podcast. I am Stephen Shelley.
And I'm Teresa Scoba.
And this week, we are really excited to share the conversation we literally just had with Gerry Powell. Gerry runs and founded the Rythmia Center in just outside of Tamarindo on the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. And we did this call via Zoom, which we usually do them via Skype, but on Zoom you really can see each other. And being visually engaged with him throughout this conversation was really, really fascinating because he's a very engaging, kind of a guy's guy. He feels like the kind of guy you'd want to watch the ball game with or something. I mean, he's really animated and very well-spoken and very, very passionate about his work with plant medicine down in Rythmia. And Teresa and I had quite a lot of questions for him about that. You're about to obviously listen to that. But Gerry, a number of years ago, struggling with addiction, tried everything, hit a really, really bad bottom, and got steered through a series of interesting events towards plant medicine and engaged in that ceremony and had a very, very transformative experience involving the moon. We'll let him tell you about that. And the moon and this experience kind of left him with a very clear mission. And what a guy for that mission. He is not your he doesn't seem like sort of a spiritual guru type guy. He doesn't position himself as that. He's not walking around in flowing robes, I don't believe. He's not chanting, through the streets of Costa Rica. He's a guy. He's just a regular guy. That's why I like this so much, because I really enjoyed talking to him. But he's someone who has benefited greatly from plant medicine and has devoted his life to it. And wow, is what he has to share very, very powerful.
Yeah, Gerry is and I think he says this, in some of his interviews, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Gerry talks about coming from a really hard upbringing and just being a very violent, from a violent upbringing and being just superficially into stuffing as much into him as possible to make himself feel okay. Money, houses, boats, women, he was really struggling. And this experience, it absolutely transformed him. And he also was downloaded basically the entire vision for this Rythmia Center, including its location, everything that they should do and offer there. It's tremendous. And Stephen and I were very interested in speaking to somebody about the transformative power of plant medicine. While we were in Costa Rica, we over and over and over again kept encountering people with bright, clear eyes who were emerging from these plant medicine ceremonies and talking about how it had transformed them, early on in their life or irrevocably for the rest of their lives. And we thought, we've studied a number of spiritual practices and programs and are very interested in this acceleration of the spiritual path, the acceleration of understanding connection with your higher self and how that seems to be moving forward very rapidly right now, this experience of awakening. We specifically wanted to talk to somebody about who's an expert who had experienced themselves and who is an expert in offering and working with others around plant medicine as a path that is an immediate awakening, one that seems to be life-transforming for the rest of your life. Although we discussed with Gerry in this interview really candidly, his experience, he really does believe that. He had emerged with his soul in this experience, and how also there's continued work to do, given how far he was from his true self. But it's, this is such an amazingly powerful interview, hearing about the vast transformation that Gerry's had and also what he's seen in people who have come to Rythmia. Yeah,
and throughout, he keeps talking about the soul. And for me, I was kind of, in my mind, that word to me means higher self, just in case you sort of follow the same path we do. I know we talk about that a lot on the show, about higher self. That's kind of what I was kind of hearing him describe, using his own words, of course. But nevertheless, kind of having an intimate kind of encounter with that, and a very, very one-on-one exchange with that facet of self. And at one point in the interview, and I'll grab an image of this because we did this via Zoom video, but he draws a picture and he shows us this picture of a person kind of divorced from their higher self or their soul, in his words. And there's this gap in between that, and that gap tends to become a person's life unless addressed. And that gap can be filled with alcohol, with drugs, with you name it. He makes a very clear point that everybody's addicted to something, whether it's your phone, whether it's fitness, whether it's, money or women, drugs, alcohol, you name it, shopping, work. These are all everybody's got something. And it tends to find its way into that gap, hoping to fill that gap, and it never works. So he draws an image right there in the middle of the conversation. I'll throw an image of that, of his drawing, up on the blog post for this episode, which will be ownstream.co/Gerry Powell. That's GerryPowell. I think Teresa has one more thing to say before we hand it over to Gerry.
Yeah, after we talk about Gerry's experience, we talk about what they're doing at Rythmia, which just sounds amazing. They've been around about 2 years and have some really fascinating data on how transformative this experience seems to be for people 6-9 months out, and how people return in large percentages for this experience. So, if you're interested, we know a lot of people who are. We are. Gerry and his team offered $150 voucher on your airport shuttle for anyone who wants to come down to Costa Rica. The Rythmia, like Stephen said, it's right outside Tamarindo in Costa Rica. It's a bit of a drive from the airport, not a few hours, but basically they are offering a $150 voucher to anyone who's listening to this podcast. There's a unique URL for that, which we'll include in the show notes for this episode. And you can go right to that URL and put your info in to get that voucher.
Yeah, awesome. And one final kind of thing about the podcast in general, if you follow us on Facebook, you're well aware of this, but we're no longer going strictly week. We've done that for most of our run. Last fall, we did go kind of every other week, but now we're just sort of letting go of time. We're letting go of schedules. We're letting go of the strict adherence to that we've done thus far. It doesn't feel right. We don't want to be squeezing in episodes. We want to talk to people like Gerry Powell, share his message. We have a bunch coming up that are at a very high level. We're so excited for that. But we're not going to squeeze these in every week. We're going to release this. I think we'll keep to the Thursday schedule because that feels right. But we're not going to. We may not be doing these every week. So, and the main reason for that is that we just don't believe that that's really part of the paradigm we're shifting into relative to time. I just don't think that it's about kind of following, the weekly work schedule. That's what a week was built around, is around the work schedule, Monday through Friday. And, when you begin to kind of wake up, you realize now is always now. There is no Monday or Thursday or Saturday or Sunday or 9 to 5. So we're surrendering that. These will come out when we have a great episode to share, so that when we release a show, it is going to be as awesome as the one you're about to hear with Gerry Powell. So enough from us. Let's turn it over to Gerry Powell. We will be back afterwards with a very quick wrap-up, but please sit back and enjoy the very lively, the very animated, the very passionate, the very wonderful Gerry Powell. All right. Well, Gerry, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Ownstream Podcast. We have been chatting a little bit before we officially press record, and it's great to talk to you. I can already tell this is going to be a lively discussion. And you're in Costa Rica. We're in Southern California. We're doing something right between the three of us. But anyway, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
I'm so honored that you have me. Thank you so much for having me.
I think, so, I guess to kind of kick things off, I think it's useful to sort of plunge into your early life, early path in life, and kind of do that kind of set the stage, if you will, for what's to come later. But, one way in is, which we find interesting, is to kind of think about, when you were young, what did you learn and believe that life was really about? When did it become clear to you that there was maybe more to life than just kind of getting a job and slugging it out? At least that's kind of what it looked like to me from an early age. But early on, sort of what was the path or the program that was given to you that what this was going to be about?
Okay, cool. So when I was a kid, I was raised in a town called Scranton, Pennsylvania. I was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And I was in a pretty violent Irish Italian Catholic family. And we learned how to hit kids and women at a young age. It was just the way things were. And I would guess I was probably a sensitive kid, but I quickly turned into an animal. And I ended up getting kicked out of schools, and I wound up in jail. And I was a violent, mean, mad, sad kind of guy. And I remember when I got out of jail, I promised myself that I would turn into something. And in my family, that just meant make money. So I went out and I became a millionaire in my 20s. I took a company public in my 30s. I sold a company for about $90 million in cash in my early 40s. And I quit working, but I had turned into a real animal. Because if you take an animal and you give it money, it just exaggerates everything.
Yeah.
And so Demerol addicted, injectable Demerol, cocaine. I had a terrible problem with women. Like I was a sex addict, but it was more than that. I would just like consume women. It was crazy. And I had a terrible temper, and I hit my wife, and I was married at the time when I was at my craziest. And I had two kids, and I don't know, I was just a real wreck. I was a real wreck of a human. And I ended up going to Passages Malibu, and I went for Demerol addiction, for injectable Demerol. The last company that I owned, I had 143 plastic surgery centers in the United States. And I had easy access to the Demerol, and I became super dependent on it. So it was pretty weird shit, And I was running companies and drinking fucking alcohol and shooting Demerol in the bathroom and running large companies. It was crazy shit, right? And having sex with girls in my office. It was just crazy life. And I was suicidal. I tried to commit suicide 2 times. And I this one day, my sons saw that I was doing this Demerol, and they were, I'd say, 14 and 16. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I decided to go to rehab. And I went to Passages, and I spent 2 months there, and I stopped doing Demerol. I never did it again, actually, the Demerol. And but I got out, and I was still the same asshole. I was still the same, addicted, misogynistic, wise ass, really bad energy guy. And people automatically disliked me. Like I had that thing. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know what it was, actually. And so what I did is I hired the guy that was running Passages to be my personal psychologist. His name was Dr. Jeff McNary. And I hired him on a full-time basis. So I had him 5 days a week from 10 to 4. And I had another psychologist 2 days a week. So I was in therapy 7 days a week, and I was going to church 2 times a week at Agape. Mm-hmm. And this went on for 4.5 years of so I got like a degree in therapy, right? Yeah. And it didn't help me. I was still the same guy. I was still the same asshole, right? And so one thing led to another, and I went to this Dr. Jeff, and I said, "Hey, dude, I'm going to kill myself if something doesn't change." And he said, "Listen, don't do that. Take a vacation." So when you go to your therapist and tell him you're going to commit suicide, and the best thing he can come up with is take a vacation, that is you got all options have probably been exhausted. So I took his advice, and I went to the Philippines, and I I was having a super hard time over there. And it just so happens that somebody I met through him saw that I was in the Philippines and I was having a hard time. And she was a shaman and she was doing a retreat in Cebu. And she stopped in on me and she said she knew of a guy who did this plant medicine in Costa Rica and it saved and changed his life. And I was out of options. So I said, I'll try it. And I flew to Costa Rica. And, you know, I never had any kind of paranormal experience or anything I couldn't explain my whole life. I could explain everything my whole life. And I ended up taking this medicine and flying to the moon outside of my body, watch my body in a guided thing. I flew to the moon and I started asking the moon questions and she started typing out answers and it was crazy shit.
Wow.
And so the first question I have for the moon is, why was I such a huge asshole? Mm-hmm. And she played a video for me that I was in. I was in the video, and it was of me getting molested. I was 3 years old by my grandfather, and it was the craziest shit. And when I saw it, I said, "Well, that's why I have the sex thing. That's why I'm angry. That's why I have the alcohol thing. That's explained everything to me." And at the end of the ceremony, at the end of this journey, which lasted 8 hours, right, on this heavy-duty African medicine, she actually merged me back with my soul and gave me a new heart. And she told me that I had to do this for other people, which was crazy because I planned to open up a string of titty bars that I was I had it all worked out. I was putting them in old airports, general aviation airports. It was called the Cockpit. I had money for 21 of them. I was going to do this whole thing, and and told me I couldn't do it, and I had to buy a resort. And within 3 months, I bought a resort, and my life has never been the same. I was drinking 300 drinks a month and smoking 800 cigarettes and doing cocaine at least 15 times. And I went from all that to I probably smoke 2 cigarettes a month. And if I go out, I might have 3 drinks once a month. And I had more girlfriends than I knew who they were. And I'm in a monogamous relationship. I'm married, and I have a real monogamous relationship, not like a country club one, like a real one where we're both, doing it. And my kids are closer to me than anybody's I know, and I'm doing this work, and I love doing it. And what we found out is that we can do this same exact process for other people to show them who they become, merge them back with their soul, and heal their heart. And we can do that all within 4 plant ceremonies, 2 breathwork ceremonies within a week. And so we have this thing where when people check out, we give them an electronic survey, and the survey says, like, how was your food and what did you think of your room and all this shit. And the last thing is, did you receive your miracle of the merged soul? And 97.25, so 972 out of 1,000 say yes to that. And they electronically report it. So this when people think, a lot of people think I did this for money, or that I'm a thought leader, or that I think I'm special or picked or chosen. Nothing's further from the truth. I was the most miserable human I think that I've ever met. And I did this not to make money. I did this because I realized what kind of human I was, and I didn't want that anymore. And I didn't want people to feel like they couldn't escape from that if they were in that, that there's a way out. And that's all I did. And we started this thing. I wasn't going to make money. I figured I could lose money for about 25 years doing this thing. And it ended up where it's starting to make some money against our will almost. Like it's starting to work. We had over 3,000 people through the doors. The first month was September of 2016. We opened. I had 17 people. We had 300 people this January as opposed to that January, and we're seeing about 300 people a month. And next year will be oversold by 5 or 6 months. So like this thing that we're doing is a real thing, and it's the kind of thing that whether you're a yogi or a guy who's never meditated before in your life, you can walk in and you will get the same experiences as everybody else. If you're open to it. If you're shut down, it's not going to happen. Or if you already know everything, it's not going to happen.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, when we were in Costa Rica, we met so many awake and alive people who had used plant medicine, who used plant medicine as a regular part of their life. And we heard amazing things about Rythmia. I know we want to hear more about what happened for you, because that's amazing. And we know a lot about the recovery world and the, kind of more traditional paths that people take to recover from addiction. I'd love to hear more. I'm sure Stephen has questions here too, but I'd love to hear more about kind of, what happened during that first plant medicine ceremony that you did. And, specifically kind of like what you understood yourself to be maybe before, and like, what did you see about yourself in that ceremony? Like, what did you see that just changed kind of like irrevocably your experience of life?
So my whole thing with addiction is that I could never stop doing anything I wanted to do. Like I could go to church in the morning and pray, Jesus, please, if there's a Jesus, please allow me to say no to the first person that offers me cocaine today, right? Just please. And I'd make it like 12 minutes after I got offered. And I'd say, fuck it, give it to me. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't say no to anything that I wanted. So I thought, I'm really helpless here. I'm really out of luck because I want a lot of things. I want women and cocaine and money and Ferraris, and I wanted all this shit that I thought I wanted, right? And when I got to meet my soul, which was crazy on the journey, my soul told me that this is what it said. It said it wouldn't help me if I was the last person on earth, and that I was a liar and I was a piece of shit, and I broke every promise I ever made to it, and I was useless, and it just went upside and downside me. And the guy that was guiding me through this journey said, beg it to help you. And I begged my soul. This part of it was 47 minutes long, me talking to my soul, which looks just like me. It's me. And I begged it, and he finally said he'd help me, but there were 2 conditions. I had to take him with me wherever I went, and then I had to run every decision I ever made for the rest of my life by him. And if we were in conflict, I had to side with him. And in the moment, I agreed to it, and he shook my hand. And then he turned into a 3-year-old boy, and he flew me all around and showed me all these things. And what was crazy is the next day after this was the first day of my life where I was talking to people, and usually I smoke in bed. I usually smoke a cigarette while I'm in bed. And I remember it was like 11 o'clock, and I thought, fuck, I forgot to smoke today. It was the kind of thing, and that happened, and then it was 7 at night, and I noticed I didn't have a drink, and I didn't want to drink. And the difference between this, when I see people that are in a struggle, and I think, what a terrible way to spend your life wanting to do something and convincing yourself of reasons not to do it, and then telling other people you're happy over it. Like that just seems crazy to me. So I always look at addicts and I go like, the difference between you and the guy next to you is you have this real pull for this, and they don't. If they had the pull, they'd be in your thing, right? It's not that you're weak. It's just you want different shit because, and so this is what the medicine told me about the addiction thing, is that she said that we were all born, so from the time you're conceived to 5 years old, this is like your aura, and something happened where you left your soul out of safety, and people are designed to break this way. And then this rift that occurred all disease, all sadness, and all addictions, all disorders come from this break. And once you heal that thing, it doesn't matter if it's a mental disease or it's a physical disease, that once you heal that what happens is it goes away. It doesn't persist. It goes away. And it's crazy shit because, I spent the rest couple months looking for it. Where's my addiction gone? Like I would look for it. As a matter of fact, I got home, and on like the 5th day that I got home, I went out, and on purpose I drank as much as I could. I did a bunch of cocaine, and I slept with a waitress. And I was like, and the next day I was like, that didn't even fucking do anything. And then I called the shaman. I said, what did you fucking do to me? Because shit's not working. That used to work for me. It's not working. And it took me about 3 weeks to get used to the fact that I no longer had any desire to do that. And that if I did it, it wouldn't even have to be fun. And that was scary because it's all I knew. I didn't know any yoga or fucking food or any. I just knew drinking and having fun. And when drinking and having fun was no longer fun, it put me in a very strange place. So when we did this resort here, we focus a lot on what going home's like because 99% of the people that come have had this happen to them. They're separate from their soul, and we know that because we watch it here on the numbers. What happens, and so most people will say they're not addicted to anything, but they are. They're addicted to. It could be their kids' baseball. They could be living through they're addicted to something. It just might not be. It might not be drugs and alcohol and this and that, but they're addicted to shopping or work or they're addicted to finding the right man or the right one. They're addicted to something, and when that shifts, life at home changes, and you need some tools to go. The only thing that's different with this is that you need some of these tools to just learn how to live a little bit differently again. And so we survey these folks at 3, 6, and 9 months out electronically. And of this 97.25, so the 972 out of 1,000, 99% of them at 9 months say that this was the week that changed their life and that the thing is still working in their life. So it's crazy stuff, right? I mean, when you think about an irregular addiction model, and I have a real problem with the regular addiction model, and I don't have a problem with too many things anymore. But anytime that you tell someone they're permanently flawed, that first piece of that, I found to be so untrue. That it's nothing. It's a disease. It's nothing. When you put this back, when you merge back with yourself, and by the way, that's like this part of this is the ankh. So this is like the vesica piscis, which I didn't even know what it was. Right. Bruce Lipton showed me after I showed him what the moon showed me. He said he told me what it was, and this is the ankh. And this, once you put yourself back in here, this disease you supposedly have, you no longer have. And I'm going to tell you the kind of things is. I just got off the phone with a guy this morning who was a cocaine dealer from Toronto, Canada, that now is in the legal weed business there. But he's a wild man, and he was just here 2 weeks ago. And he called me this morning, and he's this big dude, and he's like, dude, what's wrong? I don't want to do anything. And I said, you don't want to do anything? He goes, you wouldn't fucking believe it. I'm going to yoga, and I'm not smoking cigarettes, and I'm not doing cocaine. He's this big biker dude. And it's like, that's the kind of thing. It's like you're actually looking for where the culprit went. And the culprit the whole time was just this thing that you left yourself in that, and you did it out of safety. And when you meet your soul, wants you back in so badly, and it's not hard stuff, and it's not like voodoo or and I'm not special. It happens to everybody. So it's just this thing that happens. And when you see these people, how happy they are, and I mean really happy and sustain, and the ability to sustain it. Yeah, I mean, you still should have a practice and things like that, but oh my God, and people do weird shit too after this. They want to move out of their country, or they want to change lots of shit when they do this stuff, because they can't look at the same thing the same way anymore, right? So it's a big thing. I know I'm talking about it.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, we're really interested in various topics, subtopics you're bringing up. So when you went to rehab and you hit quote unquote bottom, as they say, did they tell you to go to 12 steps? Did you have any experience with that specifically? I went to
one of those, and I was like, I'd rather die drunk than go here. I can't do it. I just couldn't do it. I was not going to do that,
And I'm curious, like many of the old addiction models, 12 steps included obviously therapy. You could loop that in there. There's a certain timeline that's just inevitable within those programs, within those models, which are very, very long. It takes people a long time to even begin to have something happen or change. There's a great deal of work, much of it great work, but there is a time element to it. And it sounds like your experience was quite fast. I guess I'd like you to just sort of explain from your perspective, having worked with a lot of people and having gone through this, like what's happening here where now this ancient art, this ancient medicine has kind of returned as such a feature in our society that seems to be so much faster than the shit we came up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How true is that though? That what if these plants were the answer to everything? And I want to tell you, I could cry because I spent my life not even noticing what a miracle these things are growing all around us, that like I look out here and I think we're lucky enough to live in this garden of the fucking planet. It's a garden. And it really is the garden of Eden. Like this, what a planet we're lucky enough to live in. And these plants have all the answers. They have all the intelligence. They have all the answers, and they're right there. They're everywhere. And there's tons of these teacher plants. There's Canna and San Pedro and sassafras. I mean, there's millions of these plants that are all around that can teach you the whole thing from beginning to end. And we decided to bet on like abstinence and big pharma and not touching your penis and all this crazy puritanist shit that did not work. Yeah. And here in nature, it's all right there. There's nothing there that's not in the wholeness of it, right? The stuff that we did, isolating alkaloids and doing crazy pharmaceutical shit to ruin some of these plants and to demonize them. I mean, the mambe is a beautiful thing, and cocaine extracted's rough on people, lose lives, right? So we did all kinds of crazy shit to demonize these plants, and the plants are amazing and brilliant, and this shit had to come from outer space, because the chance of somebody mixing these two plants in this particular way to produce this it's mind-boggling. And like in the African tradition of iboga, they tell me stories of how they stumbled across the medicine, and it's just too out there that this couldn't have been, that we're not from something that's much more divine and intelligent that led us to these things, because it's, at the time we were hitting each other with rocks and in trees, and yet we came up with mixing this stuff in this way. Yeah, I'd love to have you guys here, and I'd love you to give this a whirl, because when the medicine talks to you, and ayahuasca speaks more as a mother, and when you see the plant cry for the world and want to heal the world, it's it's moving stuff. It's stuff that once you see it, you can't forget it. You can't unsee it, or you can't know it, that it's really real and it's really happening, and we're all a part of it. And we have a chance to do this for ourselves and for each other, and to equalize these inequalities, and to act more like nature acts. And like, there's all this stuff is there for you, and it's all in the jungle. Like, it's all right there.
I know we definitely want to talk about, I love that the plants want to heal the world, and I want to talk about the calling that came for you and has come through you in Rythmia. Can you tell us a little bit, for those who aren't so familiar with plant medicine, like what a ceremony is like? Like, and you can tell us like maybe the one that you first had, or just kind of generally, like, just walk us through like what that experience looks like.
So in a regular plant ceremony, like an ayahuasca ceremony, you'll do a little diet for a little bit before. That's usually plant-based without sugars and spice and things like that. And then just clean you up a little bit. And then you drink the medicine and you hold an intention. So if you've ever been to Catholic church or any type of ceremony like that, where in communion you receive a sacrament, it's very similar. So you receive the sacrament, you pray into the glass and just give it your intention, and you drink it and you lay down. And for most people, the first thing they see is something called pinta, which is just like colors and sacred geometry and some fractalization of things fractaling. And then the body will respond, and your body will clear through purging some things that are between you and your intention. Because you see, the plant has to honor your intention, but it has to heal in order of a priority. And so it will go in and find some things that it wants to collect from you to purge. And there are things that are blocking you from your intention. So then you find yourself purging, which is laughing, crying, sweating, shaking, throwing up, diarrhea, peeing, like it can still yawning. It's a host of different things that you purge. And then usually from there you can get a consult where something from your past or your understanding of God or energy or whatever will come to you, and it'll start talking to you. And really, it's a version of your soul that's starting to be heard, right? Because when you go to drink the medicine, what's interesting is I always say, you go, your body goes, your conscious, your subconscious, your spirit, your ego. I need a bus just to get you there, right? One person. And you drink it, and everybody gets drunk except your soul. Your body gets drunk, your mind gets drunk, your ego gets drunk, everybody gets drunk, and all of a sudden, your consciousness starts to hear your soul talk, and that's when it gets super interesting. So for most people, they are given this opportunity to merge back with their soul, and when they merge back with their soul, the next thing that happens is something called sacred or celestial surgery, where the repair or the hurt that we've done to our body and our heart over a period of time, the medicine will act as a surgeon and go in and fix the things that aren't lined up. And it's one wild night. I mean, it's a wild night. You guys have had some wild nights in your life, I'm sure. Wild night, you know.
What do you think is the quality, or what's happening where suddenly these other parts, to say the self, you're calling it the soul, is suddenly audible, is suddenly relatable to? There's something that's removed, it seems like, that makes that kind of exchange take place. What's happening there? And then maybe kind of talk about it in terms of like how we typically live. Like, many of us are veiled from these other aspects. Are you still veiled, or do you have like a more clear channel to that?
I'm such a strange and a weird cat, and I was so far off the path here. I I still, when I do medicine, I still get to crazy places on medicine. But as far as my everyday, for the first time in my life, I pray every day and I do things. So I can hear it more easily than I could before. But it's only because of practice. It's not because I have any gift for it or any aptitude for it. It's just because of doing it, right? So I really believe that the drunkenness that you're in the medicine, if you're being properly guided, so that means that you're drinking the right amount for you, that the drunkenness takes over you, and all the thing that was protecting you, your ego, takes a step down. It's that little bit of hesitation that the ego has, where you can start to really hear your soul talk, and then all of a sudden and then that puts people for 3 days in the most crazy ass mood, because they walk around with a very blank stare. So that there's this thing that happens here, where by Wednesday people are really uneasy because most of what they thought their whole life they just learned might not be true. And so there's this big thing that happens, and then and then the medicine keeps working in you to keep leading you to truth, right? So if I were to say what it is, it's truth serum. So these San Pedro, in Cana, in Iboga, in ayahuasca, they're really true sassafras. They're really true serums. And the spirit of alcohol is one of a trickster, right? So alcohol is a very tricky spirit. That's why it's so well known and consumed and loved. It's a real tricky thing that's based on trickery. And these others are really based in truth, and they feel different and ring different, and so the one of the craziest things that I've ever heard is that the medicine said to a friend of mine, she said to her, the gift of alcohol is that, because its gift is it directs you to where you're still unhealed. That's the gift of it. So like the thing is that and that came from ayahuasca. So that's the ayahuasca is such a truth teller, and and I don't know if I'm answering the question, and I don't even remember what the question was. I'm sorry.
I don't think I do either, but it's just interesting to hear you talk about this. Honestly, I think we're just going to keep asking questions, and you can keep just answering however you want, because one quick follow-up on that. You sort of alluded to this, but just to clarify, so you still do plant medicine ceremonies? Is that sort of an annual thing for you, or is there any?
No, I do it every week, because I host the workshops. So when you come here, you're forced to go to my workshops. So let's say we have guest speakers and me. So I take the morning workshops, and then the guest speakers take the afternoon workshops. And then on Thursday night, I try to journey with that group. And a lot of times I'm just holding space for them. And a lot of times I'm doing my own work all the time, because there is no top in this thing. I mean, you just keep doing more, and what's crazy is when the plant will show you how far you've gone, and I'm like, here. I could spend the rest of my life doing it, and it's not the kind of thing like I could not do it for 3 years and I wouldn't blink an eye, because there's no addiction to it, because it's really it's hard work. This is not, there's many Thursday nights that I think I wish I didn't tell this group that I was doing this. So many Thursday nights where I feel like that, but yeah, it's a great thing. I don't know if you know too much about the transformational breathwork, but that in combination with plant medicine is wild.
Actually, we were going to ask you, I know that there's a combination of modalities that you offer at Rythmia. Maybe you can talk about like how that all came about and why that's Like, I know transformational breathwork is part of that. Like, why all of this together, and how did that come about?
And it sounds so crazy, right? But the funny thing there is that the moon showed us exactly wrote out what to include and what not to include, because the moon types. So this medicine of Iboga is one of where the moon doesn't speak; it types in a screen, like computer screen, and it showed us everything to include and everything not to include, and what food to have here, and even how to do it. And it was big on this cleanse, this colonic cleanse to as part of it, and the breath work was a must. It's the two shortcuts are plant medicine and breath work, and so to put all this together, so we have this hydrocolonic open water cleansing system. We have the farm to table organic food. We have massage, which is a real part of it. We have yoga. We have meditation. We have the plant medicine. We have transformational breath work, and then group therapy, and metaphysical classes, all in this 1 week. It's a hell of a week. I mean, it's a crazy week. Here's what's so funny. Walk on a bicycle, I think we're 6 minutes to the beach, and most people never go. Like they just stay here. And then they go and they write in their thing, we wish we went to the beach. Like, that's the thing.
You're in Tamarindo, is that right?
Yeah, we're actually in Hacienda Pinilla, which is about 10 minutes from Tamarindo, cool. By Avellanas there.
And do you also host at Rythmia other talks and other types of events? Is that also going on there? I think I've seen some cool stuff also going on down there. Yeah, Greg Braden, for sure.
Braden's here. He's coming for a breathwork week next time. But I mean, some really super cool people like Graham Hancock, Gabor Mate, Michael Beckwith, like just super, Anita Mirjani. They're like just super, super cool people that are doing this panache to Sai, and we made so many friends with so many wonderful, really, like, there's thought leaders who are full of shit, and there's thought leaders who are super real, and the real ones are just amazing, dude. Like the guys that have, and women that have given their life to really trying to do this thing and trying to help, and the medicine separates all that out for you. It's really hard. It's impossible to fool the medicine. Mm-hmm. You can fool yourself for your whole life, but you can't fool the medicine. It's just crazy. So yeah, we have a lot of that stuff. And there's 1 week a month, we do this completely on transformational breath work with no medicine whatsoever. And it's the same thing, only that it's 6 nights of breath work. And I mean, it's every bit as hallucinogenic, if not more hallucinogenic than plant medicine. It's crazy. Yeah. And it's hard and scary, and it's everything that plant medicine is, except you don't throw up. And that's the only difference. And that really is the only difference. So, I mean, when I did the breath work, I was just amazed, because the moon said that there were 2 ways to do it, that there was plant medicine and breathing. And I thought, well, that's like saying there's 2 ways to get to work, in a car and breathing. You have to be breathing to get there. I thought it like that. And then somebody came and said, I want you to do this breathwork thing. And I'm like, I don't think. And then I remembered, and I took out the book, because this whole thing is in a book, what this moon said. And it said, the breath thing. And I said, I'll try it. And I did it. And I got to my little boy. I could talk to my little boy. I was like, holy shit, this is actually it. This is the it of it. And we started doing it as part of the program. And it's amazing. And I tell you, like, people will go to all these classes like Landmark, which is, I think, wonderful, and all those things, and they'll get so hyped up for a week or a couple days or whatever the thing is. And what is kind of unique to this thing that I've seen is that 6 months later, these people are still 9 months later just the shit changed their life. It did what it did to me. Like, it changed their life. And I love addicts because they feel so dirty and to themselves, and to see them freed up is really, it gives me the greatest joy to see people who really thought they were defective in some way, to see them in their wholeness, where they can see themselves in their whole, is a super gift. It's a great, great gift. Yeah.
What's so interesting is this like kind of interplay between these shortcuts and then kind of like longer term practice. And it sounds like you get all kinds of people at Rythmia. So
all
I'm
kinds.
interested to hear a little bit about that. But do you guys kind of, in that week, you're doing all these practices, are you kind of giving people these glimpses, and sometimes maybe often, the reunion with their soul? And then, like, what's the kind of sustained practice that you're teaching or recommending? And do you see a difference when these people in 6 months, 9 months? It sounds like everybody's irrevocably changed, but do you see any difference? And do you know if they're practicing? Do they report on that too?
Here's where there is a temptation. So, and I fell into this in my first year of the thing. It's knowing you can refix it with your soul real quick. Got me at one point a little bit where I'm like, fuck it up. I'll just go and have some fun, and then I'll just do some more of this, and then it'll all be good, and da-da-da-da. And that's where I was retaught by the medicine about my practice. So the right combination of this thing, and then the moon curses like crazy, right? And she curses, and she's a fucking terrible mouth, and she's funnier than anything. God is, it's funny, right? But she said, you can't undo it. You can only rescrew it. So when you remerge with your soul, you can't undo that you remerged. You can screw it up again. And how do you screw it up? You lie. That's all based in lies, right? Because this is based in truth. And so the way to keep that connection clean is just through a little daily practice. And I mean a little, like, most of the people that come here are people that have lives and professions, and they're doing something, whether they're healers that have to be responsible, or they work in a bank, or whatever the thing is. They have lives, and this isn't asking them to, you have to become a yogi. You can do 99 breaths, which is this breath work daily practice that takes about 5.5 minutes. But you have to do something, and we teach people how to arrange themselves so they can do something every day. And that's the thing that makes all the difference. We have people that come back often. We have a guy his family's been here 15 times in the first year that he was here. Wow. And 40% of the people come back and do it again. And we don't have that long of data. I only have 2 years of stuff. So 40% come back within 2 years. And, so I mean, it's a lot. So really, when this happens, you do what you want, and what you generally want is to keep that connection clean. So, like, this is the difference between doing it, and I have nothing against AA. And look at anything that works for anybody, I'm 100% for. But it's a tall order if you take a guy who's trying to pleasure himself out of his pain. So he's following everything he wants to do. He's doing some cocaine and chasing girls and drinking and doing whatever he wants to do, and say, hey, look, at the way out of this is for you to meditate or pray and stop doing the things that you want to do. That's a tall order for someone that, hey, well, wait, I never did this shit before in my life. Now you want me to pray? You want me to go apologize to everybody I ever did? You want me to stop doing the shit that is keeping me alive, that I love doing? And you want me to come to these meetings all the time? And for some people that works. For me, I didn't have and I still don't. I don't have the self-discipline for that. I do what I want to do. This is what I want to do. This isn't something I'm doing because I have to do it. Some days my daily practice is something that I have to do. There are days, and I do it. But that's about as deep as I can get. I can't. If you put me in a room full of anything, and I wanted to do it, I would find my way to do it. And I think most people are that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine what makes your message so palpable, at least I think we can feel that, is that you're not pretending to be some kind of guru or someone who's quote unquote enlightened or anything. You're just a guy who actually sort of went out and, kind of like Bill Wilson, just tried everything, just did it all. And you've come to something that really, really clearly works for you. I think we've got to kind of start to wrap up. We do have three quick questions we tend to ask, but before we get to those real quick, I'd like for you to talk about, I probably very briefly about kind of where is all this going? So all these people, it seems like in various aspects of life, one of the things we look at a lot are how people are awakening. And obviously you're dealing directly with that practice of awakening. Where does this go? Say 5 years from now, we have 5%. I'm just making up numbers here, but let's say 5% of the population is awake. 10 years from now, 10% of the population is awake. What is changing? Where is all this leading? And in specific, like the notion of community, how is that developing and changing now?
So I believe this too. I really believe that we're in the shift.
Yeah.
I think this is the golden age. I think that this is the time, and that all of us together are this family, right? And in this family, it doesn't take much. You're looking at like fractions of people. If everything is in balance, then every time it gets out of balance, so every time it gets out of balance to the good, the bad has to come up, and it keeps going. The next thing you know, the standard is much higher, much lighter than it was, right? So we're doing it. And when I mean we're doing it, I mean, everybody that's doing anything is doing it. And I'm going to tell you something that is funny. When I was a kid and I was 16 years old, I knew what car I wanted. My whole life was about a car, chasing women, and drinking, 16 years old. And now you see these kids, and these kids are not about that. Kids don't want to drive. They are doing wild shit that's like spiritually based. Like if you just hang around Venice and Culver City and you see what these kids are doing, and kids not wanting clothes and things that was my whole life when I was a kid. Like they're into the arts more. They're just different. It's true evolution is occurring in front of our own eyes through this next generation, the generation after it. You can watch it. They're about different things. And so, I mean, it's really happening. And I think like Trump is a dead cat bounce. And I think he's bringing out this division between everybody and lighting it up. He's the perfect guy for the job from both sides. He couldn't be more perfect. And I just see this stuff is all coming together. And near the end, when something's shaking, it gets shaken real hard before it gets calm, right? And this is the part that pieces are getting shaken.
It's sort of like your story. There's a bottom. I feel like Trump is the bottom.
Getting us there quicker, that's for sure.
And he's cocaine, he's just going straight downhill.
We're right there with you, Gerry. Wow,
I hear you.
Well, I know we need to wrap up, so we're going to ask these quick rapid fire 3 questions we ask at the end of every podcast. So the first is, what book or books up to 3 would you recommend that everyone should read? And if it's not a book, if it's like a video or a magazine or something, that's cool too. Like what 3 resources would you recommend that everyone check out?
That's a tough one. Let me think. I can't even answer that. You know why? Because I read crazy things. So like what I read would probably screw people up.
So
I
was especially interested because I thought what you read might be pretty
know
wild.
What's the weirdest thing you've read in the last year?
Trumbulo Melchizedek. His books are out there. You know.
Wow, okay.
All right. Cool.
We'll look them up. So this question is for someone who's deeply embedded, totally asleep. Working a job they hate, whatever. Like, what's one thing they can do? What's one tip or suggestion you would give that person to begin to release themselves from the grasp of this kind of toxic matrix people find themselves?
I got that one. Leave yourself alone. Leave yourself fucking alone. And really leave yourself alone. Stop beating yourself up about shit that you're just compelled and driven to do by these circumstances. And, most people that drink or have sex, too much sex, whatever their thing is, are so shamed and sad. And God, if they could just leave themselves alone and know that it's really not their fault, that there's more going on than they can perceive at this moment. That's, when you don't listen to your soul, most of these people don't even know they have one. They're so involved in the thing that they're involved in the day-to-day of I want more, to trying to fill up the hole of this thing. And there is no way to fill it up. There's not a bucket big enough to do it, right? So they're caught in this hamster wheel and being pissed at themselves for being on it. If they just leave themselves alone, they're going to get a little breath of fresh air. And in that breath of fresh air, they might see something,
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. The third question is, what are you most excited about right now?
I'm most excited about the next generation of kids. Like, I'm just dying to see what happens next from all of these things that are going on. And I really know in my heart that the end of the world is not upon us, that this is actually a new start. And to be here, I'm excited to be a part of all the times to live. We were lucky enough to live in this time and be a part of this thing, whatever part it is, just be a part of this thing. And I know that we'll die different people than we have before. That this is really a gift to just be concerned and like you guys, like a part of it and concerned about it and in it. What a great gift! A great gift. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, particularly to have a 2-year-old who's very clearly here with a very big mission. She's got a big personality. Well, before we say bye, Gerry, where should people find you online? Where would you like people to steer people? And anything coming up for you or for Rythmia that you'd like people to know about?
Okay, cool. So it's www.rythmia, rythmia.com. And, just come to the website and look. If you don't believe what's on the website, go to TripAdvisor or Google reviews and see what people are saying and leave yourself alone and come down here and drink some medicine and we'll have a great week.
Awesome.
And I know that listeners of the podcast can have $150 off their airport shuttle from Gerry's team from Rythmia. So we'll include all that info in the blog post with this and in the introduction to this episode. So everything you need to know to get that and to go experience Rythmia.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Gerry. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate
it. It's been fantastic. You guys are so sweet. God bless you both. Yeah.
You too.
I can see you here.
We'll say hi if we're down your way.
We should be. Yeah, we should be back soon. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Promise, because I'd love to see you here.
That's it for this week's Ownstream Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this amazing interview with Gerry Powell. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode for links to everything mentioned, including the Rythmia website and the special Ownstream link for a $150 discount in travel to the center, the Rythmia social media handles, and all the other resources we discussed. That can all be found at ownstream.co/Gerry Powell. That's ownstream.co/GerryPowell.
Please sign up for our newly revamped newsletter, News for a New Earth, Tools and Stories for an Enlightened World. Approximately twice a month, we will send out a digest of the latest findings and creations emerging from the vast paradigm shift of awakening happening right now on the planet. Everything from spiritual breakthroughs to scientific findings about the quantum field and consciousness, to the latest in alternative living structures, nutrition, health and healing, cryptocurrency, community building, world travel, and more. Basically, it's the news you actually need. Please sign up at ownstream.co and just click the sign up link in the upper right-hand corner on any page.
Please leave us a review on iTunes. We definitely need your help in expanding our reach, helping us inspire more people and spread the amazing ideas discussed on this episode with Gerry Powell and others too. If it feels right to you, simply go to iTunes, search for the Ownstream Podcast, click ratings and reviews, then tag that 5th star and leave us a brief comment on how this episode has inspired you. Thank you so much for considering that. We are very grateful. Finally, we're on Twitter and Facebook at Ownstream and on Instagram at own_stream. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks for listening to the Ownstream Podcast. To learn more and connect with us, please visit ownstream.co or follow us on Twitter at Ownstream and Instagram at own_stream.